Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to do another out and about video for you. So today, I'm at this place here, Caius Farm Brewery, and these guys are in Branford, just outside of New Haven in Connecticut. Now, this is a very, very new brewery. They've only been here for about 6 months from what I can gather. They opened in March of 2023. So yeah, we'll do as we always do. We'll go in, we'll have a little look around, we'll try some of the beers, and hopefully we'll have a good time here. So yeah, let's get started on this one. Really cool to visit a brewery that is so young, actually. This is a kind of first for the channel as well. So hope you guys enjoy this one. So yeah guys, that's where I was standing just a minute ago to film the wee introduction, but this is the brewery here. It looks really nice, kind of like an old engine shed, actually. It kind of reminds me of some of the old train engine sheds back home, but I have to say it's a really nice, quite calm and beautiful spot, this. And the brewery itself is lovely. So yeah, if we just walk over here, you'll see this thing is yeah, just so obviously very new and still very, very clean. So yeah, it's lovely, honestly. I'm really impressed with the interior of this place. So I'm not sure how well you can see it in this light, but the brewery symbol is almost, it's kind of like some sort of flower. I'm not sure how well you'll see it from this side, but you can see it on the door there as you come in. So cheers. But yeah, you come in the brewery here and you can see this place is just lovely. So you've got your tap room at the front here and everything there. There's the brewery symbol and it's up there on the window. You can see it better from this side, but yeah, lovely, just kind of open, airy tap room. The brewery's up here. We'll have a little closer look at that in a bit. Some of your fodders and oak aged vessels over here. Some lagering tanks there, as you can see as well. And then, yeah, from this side as well, you can see it looks really nice. But there's a beautiful little beer garden out the back, which I have to say is really very, very nice as well. Beautiful little spot, this one, actually. But yeah, we have someone chilling over here who's been on the channel before.
How you doing?
This is Mr. Tabor, who is being a good boy today because he's the designated driver. Very kindly brought me down here. But you're gutted that you can't try these lagers, aren't you?
Yeah, man, they sound real good. I've never had anything like them before.
Yeah.
Next time.
Next time, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, sadly Tabor can't join us for the tastings today. So yeah, we'll need to make another arrangement to film in Colorado or something.
Absolutely, I'll give you a grand tour.
Hells yeah. Right. Anyway, guys. The glasses are empty, we need to go and get something else, so let's do this. So yeah guys, just a little look at the tap list here. I'm not sure how well you're going to see it on the video actually, but all of these beers are named after different kind of characters of history and things like that. So yeah, over on the left here, number 1 is a Vienna Lager, Umachia, 4.5% ABV. Number 2 is Boadicea, which is an Imperial Maple Stout at 12%. Number 3, Arminius, a Robust Porter, 6.5. Number 4 is a Belgian style Grisette Ale, that's Caesarian, 4%. Number 5 is Zenobia, Bavarian style Hefeweizen, 5.4. Cleopatra is number 6, a New Zealand IPA. Apicus, number 3, POG, that's a fruited kettle sour at 5.5% ABV. Caracalla, or Caracalla, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, 8%. Caracalla, there we go. American IPA at 6.7. Then if we move over here to the other side, number 9, there's Babila, which is a German style Kolsch. Then number 10 is Catullus Citra at 10%, 7.2% ABV. Then the Pericles, 9.1%. Imperial IPA. Then number 12, Boadicea Coffee, Nitro conditions, Imperial Coffee Stout, 12%. Then number 13 is Faustina the Younger, and Oak Conditions German style Helles Lager, which we're going to start with, 4.7%. Then they've got the Sappho 14%, at number 14, a 4.5% German style Helles lager. Then the Hinda at number 15 is a Czech style Pilsner at 4.7%. Here you can see they've got a little thing about the Faustina the Younger being a limited edition, but they have the list here, so let me just take it round. So yeah, I'll just go over this slowly so you can pause the video and have a little look at any of the things that you might fancy. To turn it round, then yeah, you can have a little look at this. But yeah, that's a nice mix of things here at Caius Farm Brewery. I'm not sure how well that's showing up in the video, but still, let's get started on the beer tastings. Alright guys, well, time for our first tasting then here at Caius Farm Brewery in Branford. So the first beer that we're going to have a little look at today is something that I think should be quite interesting. It's a style that's always good to start with when you visit a brewery, and it's one that I really enjoy, and it also has a wee bit of a twist to it that I haven't really seen in this brewery, in this beer style's country of origin, I guess we could say. So the first beer is going to be Faustina the Younger. It comes in at 4.7% ABV, and this one is a German style Helles lager aged in an oak cask. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, the definition of a lager beer is one that undergoes fermentation using a bottom fermenting yeast at a colder temperature, usually 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. They take a little bit of a longer time to mature because the reaction takes place at a lower temperature. But yeah, the Helles lager is of course the German blonde lager. You have an equivalent beer of this in the Czech Republic, which is called the Svetli. But yeah, not too often that you see an oak kind of aged one of these beers. It's kind of getting a bit more common in sort of farmhouse type breweries, which I'm guessing this brewery is. So yeah, this was a recommendation from the guys at New England Brewing Company to come here. So yeah, this one, as you'd expect from a Helles lager, it's poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. When it poured, it had about a finger of a frothy white head, but of course I had to get the camera and stuff set up, so that has faded away. Lovely kind of thin foamy layer on the top now, but a bit of a richer ring around the edge of the glass, but you can see quite clearly what the colour of the head was. But yeah, nice pale golden straw colour to it, little touch of natural haze, not too much in the way of visible carbonation. But in terms of what you'd expect appearance wise from any type of Helles lager, it's nothing surprising, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's have a little look then at the aroma and see what this one has in store for us. Oh yeah, that smells really nice actually. So what I'm going to say straight away is that you are getting everything you'd expect from the Helles lager in the aroma, but it's just got this little bit of kind of like a bit of an apple juicy and a more kind of like dry white winey type thing to it. I'm curious to see how that's going to translate into the flavour. They did warn me at the bar that this one was a little bit sort of funky, so yeah, we'll see what it gives us. But yeah, otherwise, aroma-wise, it's pretty much spot on. So the backbone of the beer, you obviously have a little bit of this lovely smooth American oak coming out of this one. And American oak, as I've said, for me at least, it tends to be a little bit smoother. You get a little bit of vanilla character out of it. It's always quite interesting in that particular regard. But yeah. On top of that, you start to get this kind of fresh white bready bread crust, which is great. Lovely smooth fresh white bready bread crust. Kind of like a, don't know if you get it in America, but it's kind of like a hedgehog sort of loaf. Has got a wee bit of dryness to it. There's mainly like a fluffy white bready character sitting on top of that. Perhaps a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker, a graham cracker I think is probably a good comparison in the US. And then yeah, you get a little touch of sweetness out of this one on top. So yeah, on top of that, there's a little bit of like a McVitie's digestive biscuit, a little bit of a kind of cookie sort of thing coming out of this one, as the Americans would say. But yeah, not too much in the way of sweetness. This is of course a more kind of woody, bready and sort of crackery leaning Helles lager, this one. I'm surprised it doesn't have a wee bit more kind of like yeastiness coming out of it in the back of the nose, you know, a little bit more of that kind of farmhousey sort of thing. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty spot on. Now, in terms of the hoppy component of this one then, so on the green side of things, you're getting a nice little bit of smooth earthiness there. You're also getting quite a bit of a bright floral aromaticity, and also quite a little bit of grassiness as well. Now the thing is, I'm not sure, I'd be curious to know at what point they hop this beer, but if it has been aged for a little bit in oak barrels, a bit of the hoppy character I'm sure will have dropped out of it. But the hoppy character in this one is kind of consistent with the German Hallertauer Tettnanger hops, that big bright green component. If it was Czech hops they were using, it would be a little bit more spicy in that note. But on the fruity side of things, you do get a little bit of this kind of, as I say, sharper white winey note coming out of it, a little touch kind of citricy, but then you've also got these lovely little bits of like oily pear coming out of it, a kind of fresh green apple, and then yeah, you have got a wee bit of like a sort of gooseberry type note to it as well, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if there's a bit of Hallertau Blanc in this actually. So yeah, that's quite an interesting thing to think about this beer. But yeah, I think it's about time that we have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this. I have to say though, this stein is a little bit difficult to hold. I can only really fit 2 fingers through it, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, anyway. So, this one is the Faustina the Younger, a 4.7% Helles Lager, aged in oak barrels, our first beer here at Caius Farm Brewery. So let's do this. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, that's a really, really nice beer. It's actually, when you first take it in, it's really, really clean. Very, very clean beer, this one. On the impact, actually, on the impact flavour, it almost has a very slight, like, cloudy apple juice type flavour. That's really interesting. Wasn't quite expecting that from this one. But it's a lovely beer, this one, so it gets a big, big thumbs up from me. So easy to drink. That's lovely. I think I'll need to get a can of this one to take away with me. That's really good. So yeah, where do we start with this one then? It's this beer. It gives you the type of flavours you'd expect, but it's just not coming out in the way that I expected. But very positive experience with this beer. So the middle third of your palate, the backbone is that lovely smooth American oaky character. A little bit further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of vanilla out of the wood, as you often do. Then on top of that, you get a very slight smattering of like fresh white bready bread crust. Then there's a little bit of like cracker, graham cracker, Jacob's cream cracker. Then you get that fluffy white bread from the lager malt in this one. I'd be curious to know what the malt bill is on this beer actually, but it is really, really nice. That is good. So yeah, for me, on top of that white bready character, you do start to get a little bit of sweetness out of this one. So in the dead centre of your palate, you get this lovely little bit of like more concentrated, sweet biscuity character, which is great. On top of that, or other than that, so you get that more concentrated biscuity character which is covering the alcohol, and as you move out toward the edges of your palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of grainy biscuity note, which I think is great as well. And yeah, to be honest with you, I think that covers everything we need to say about the middle third of your palate, but the focus of the flavour in this one is when you move into the aftertaste and it gives you that more woody sort of thing. It's lovely. Let's go to the back third of the palate then. As I often say, the back third of your palate always gives you similar flavours, but just a little bit more, different intensities and things like that. So the back third of your palate, the woody character's a little bit drier. You've got a wee touch more of the kind of crackery character coming out of the beer as well. Then on top of that, you get the fluffy white bready layer in there, which is taller and lighter and more airy, and you can feel a wee bit of the drier biscuity notes just creeping over the top there, and then you've got the kind of yeasty notes coming over the top of the beer too. So yeah, on top of that, you've got a really nice, the yeasty character for me is like a quite dense, sweet, brown bready sort of thing. So you do have this kind of dense, sweet, doughy, brown bready character out of this one. You've got a little bit of a more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit, you know, just kind of wrapped around it, a little bit of like honeycomb and things like that. But the way this beer goes together in that flavour profile is really nice. The yeasty character just goes together really well in this one. Yeah, you can definitely feel that back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I like that about this beer for sure. On the hoppy side of things, it's what you'd expect. A little bit of smooth earthiness in there, a little bit of herbal character. As you come further forward, a little bit more floral and aromatic, but again, not too kind of spicy or anything, because it is German hops that are in here. And then yeah, around the front curve of your palate, it's got a little bit of that wetter, more leafy, kind of white bready, green, sort of that more leafy, grassy sort of note actually. But yeah, fruity side of the beer then. Front third of your palate, you've got a lovely little bit of kind of fresh, white bready note on top of the wood there. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me, you get this really nice little bit of, you get a little bit of like a sultana type note in there, you know, white raisins type thing at the back of that front third of your palate. As you move further forward, there's a very slightly oily and dry pear, maybe a little tiny hint of like apricot or something. Then as you move forward toward the front of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of fresh green apple sort of thing coming out of it. I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour part of this beer. So yeah, I think that's it, to be honest with you. So yeah, to round off the mouthfeel of this one then. Yeah, kind of mid-range of the light-bodied part of the spectrum. Carbonation has a wee bit of crispness to it. Very clean, kind of wet beer, this one. IBU wise, I think this is kind of about 20 IBUs, which is sort of standard for the Helles Lager style. The maltiness, as we said, there's a bit of dryness from the wood the further into the aftertaste that you go. It's got a lovely little bit of the malty character on this one is very smooth in the middle and a little bit sweet on top. And the fruitiness is, you know, quite wet and oily, to be honest with you, and it has a wee bit of a kind of almost apple juicy, white winey impact to it, which is kind of interesting, but it's very slight. It's not a sour beer at all, this one. But yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is it's really, really nice, and it gets a massive thumbs up from me. Really happy with that. So that was the Faustina the Younger, a 4.7% oak-aged Helles Lager, our first beer here at Caius Farm Brewery. So yeah, catch you guys in a second with something else. So yeah guys, just a little quick look at the merchandise you can get. Obviously over here you've got a nice hoodie which is $50. Then you've got the jumper as well, which is $50, and you've got a few different kind of t-shirts up here, all of which look pretty nice, and you can get these ones for like $20. But different kinds of glassware. You've got your American pint glasses, you've got your I don't know exactly what you would call these. These are the kind of saison type glasses. You've got your tecus, then you've got your little taster glasses over here as well. You've also got a few other t-shirts on this side and a few kind of baseball caps, because you know it is America. But yeah, I have to admit, I do think it'd be quite cool if they sold that. I think this is really nice, but that's, I think, just part of the brewery decoration. But it's also up there on the window. I'm not sure how well you're going to see that actually. But yeah, good little selection of merchandise here at Caius Farm Brewery. So yeah. Alright guys, well, time for our second tasting then. So we're going to stick with lagers for this one, but we're going to try a style of lager that I haven't seen too many of in the US actually, but it's a style of lager that I very, very much enjoy. So this particular beer is the Umachia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Comes in at 4.5% ABV, and this one is a Vienna lager. So when this beer poured, again it had a bit of finger of a frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head this time. You can see the bubbles on this one are a bit more kind of medium sized, a little bit less foamy, but I have to say the colour of this one's quite interesting. This is definitely more along the lines of like a rich amber. The colour of this beer is actually a little bit more like a kind of German Märzen or a Czech Letzak, to be honest with you. So one of the brighter Vienna lagers that I've come across. But this style does have a spectrum of colour. It can be, I have seen one or two that are a little bit lighter like this, but they tend to be a little bit more dark and kind of chestnutty, to be honest with you, in my experience. But still, it should be interesting, this. One or two big bubbles of carbonation sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, and you can see the head is actually retaining quite well on this. One thing I do have to compliment them on as well is that they offer 3 different types of pour with this one, and it basically just, you know, affects the foam and things like that, and you can get a crisp pour, you can get a sweet pour or a smooth pour. Essentially, and yeah, if you get the crisp one, a little bit more carbonation and stuff in it, obviously. You get the smoother or the sweeter one, you're going to have your sort of typical finger and a half, 2 fingers worth of head in it. So yeah, I got the smooth one because that's how a Vienna lager should be, to be honest with you. But yeah, nice kind of clear colour on this one. Looks very, very nice, as I say, on the lighter end of the colour spectrum for a Vienna lager, in my opinion. But let's have a wee look at the aroma then and just see what this one is going to have in store for us. This should be really nice. Oh yeah, aroma-wise, this is quite interesting. Now, I've tried a good bunch of Vienna brewed Vienna lagers, thanks to one of my followers who sent me a bunch of them up to Sweden, which was great. But yeah, it was really, it's really interesting just to try to smell an American one of these, because as I've said on many an occasion, American beers just tend to be that little bit sweeter and that little bit wetter for me in comparison to their European counterparts. So yeah, what I look for in these lagers as well is authenticity, and this one's pretty damn good actually. So this beer, one of the things a lot of people have a misconception about with Vienna lagers is that they often think they're quite sweet, but they do actually have this kind of grainy, almost rye bready bread crust character coming out of them. And you do get that in this one, which is really interesting. So yeah, lovely kind of slightly dry rye bready bread crust in there. You do get a very slight woodiness out of it, some lovely crackery character as well. And then yeah, on top of that, you have this, yeah, on top of that, you've got this lovely, just a little bit of, I would say, like wholemeal, brown bready, rye bread sort of character. So yeah, maybe a little bit of rye bread, and then on top of that, like a sweeter pumpernickel, and then a wholemeal brown bread. It's quite leathery in terms of its, or quite layered, I should say, not leathery, in terms of its bready character. But you do have this, little bit of like a leathery brown sugar sitting on top, and then you get a wee bit of like a sweetness. You've got a wee bit of a kind of like a dry toasty caramel in there. So yeah, a little bit of a dry toasty caramel, a little bit of an oily sweeter caramel as well, and as I say, you've got a little touch of woodiness and nuttiness just coming out of this beer later on too, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, malty and yeasty wise, this beer's pretty good actually. Definitely one of the more bready Vienna lagers I've come across. Now on the hoppy side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect too. The Austrians do have their own hop producing region called the Upperwürthtal, but I don't think they export too many hops from there, so I would be curious to know what hops they've used in this one. To me it actually smells a little bit more German in its hoppy character, maybe Hallertau or Tettnang, who knows. But yeah, it's got a little bit of a smooth earthy character to it, a little bit of herbal character as well. You've got a nice kind of little bit of floral aromaticity, wee touch of a kind of, yeah, definitely a little touch of a kind of wet, leafy sort of grassiness as well. And then on the fruity side of things, a little bit of an oily pear, little touch of little touch of oily pear. Bit of sultana as well, you know, white raisins almost. And yeah, I think that covers it, to be honest with you. Maybe a very slight touch of date as well. But yeah, it smells really nice. You can see the glass is sweating because of the humidity out here, actually. But yeah, I think it's probably about time that we have a taste of this and see what it's all about. This is the Umachia, a 4.5% Vienna lager here at Caius Farm Brewery in Branford. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. That's really nice, actually. It's very, very smooth, this one. I'm waiting to see if in the aftertaste, this is one of the things I would say, this beer, it is very slightly like a Czech Letsak, like a Czech amber lager. It has got the smoothness of that, but it does show you a little bit of that typical kind of rye bready graininess you'd expect of the Vienna lager, just a touch later into its, just a little touch later into the flavour. But yeah, once again, lovely, lovely lager this. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. Both of these lagers have been great. Let's just break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth then. So the base of that middle third of your palate, you've got this lovely, kind of slightly dry, rye bready, bread crusty type character there. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of woodiness. And then it's got a little bit of a crackery character above the bread crust, which is great. Then you've got a layer of different bready notes in there. We touch a kind of thinner layer of like crisp rye bread, a sweeter like pumpernickel German brown bread sort of layer. Then you get a wholemeal brown bready layer on top of that, which is a little bit drier. Very layered beer, this one, actually. This stein is just slipping out of my hand, it's just too small. But yeah, the on top of the bready character then you get a little bit of this leathery brown sugary character there. Then you get a wee bit of a toasty brown sugar layer, and in the dead centre of your palate you can feel this kind of sweet caramelly sort of thing from, and that'll of course be covering the alcohol at 4.5% ABV. I think this one is actually slightly lighter than a number of Vienna lagers you're going to come across. Most of the ones I came across were actually closer to 5%. So that's maybe one of the reasons why this beer is a little bit lighter in colour and more bready leaning. Just isn't quite as heavy in its alcohol, but still. But yeah, little touch of caramel, dry caramel in the middle of your palate, wee bit of like toasty brown sugar underneath, and then the more leathery notes, and you've got a wee bit of biscuity character just sitting on top of it there too. So yeah, I like how this one goes together. Yeah, this is really nice. Yeah, on the middle third of your palate, I think that's everything we need to see. Now the back third of your palate is quite similar. So you've got the base of that back third of your palate there, where you've got the bread crust, and it feels a little bit more kind of dry and grainy. Like quite often you get sweeter flavours further forward, more dry and bitter flavours further back. So you've got the bread crust, a bit of the cracker once again, which feels drier. The rye bready layer feels a little bit taller and more airy. Then you've got the pumpernickel layer, which feels the same. Then the wholemeal brown bread on top of that, and a wee bit of the dry brown sugary character just creeps on top of that. Then you've got the yeasty notes coming out of the beer. So let's look at those. So for me, the yeasty side of this beer, once again, it's like quite an intense, sweet, doughy, brown bready character that comes out of this one. It's kind of wrapped in honeycomb, I would say, as well. And you've got a wee bit of this woody, crackery character to it, but definitely back third of your palate, the flavour is taller, then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. So yeah, the way this one goes together I think is really nice, and it's a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a good little touch of earthiness in there, which I think builds a good bridge with the drier bread crusty character. As you move further forward, it's a little touch more herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got a little bit more of that floral aromaticity, but it's a wee bit wetter actually, I would say. So yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, a little bit of a more leafy, grassy sort of character. Then the front third of your palate is, of course, all about the kind of fruity notes out of the beer. So for me, the fruity side of this one, you've got a nice little bit of, you've got a nice little bit of, I would say, kind of bread. You've got a little bit of kind of bready build up in there. So the base is the kind of rye bread crust, and it's thinner layers of rye bread, pumpernickel, wholemeal brown bread. Then you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got the lovely kind of you've got a little bit of an almost datey character in there. A wee bit of like sultana, of course, as well. But as you move further forward, lovely kind of oily pear, and as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you have this very slight, like almost gooseberry type note underneath too. So it's really interesting how all of that pieces together in this one. Really interesting beer, this. So yeah, to round off then, we look at the mouthfeel. So mouthfeel wise, for me, this beer, it's quite, for me mouthfeel wise, this beer is quite an oily lager, but still quite clean. Top end light bodied, smooth carbonation, as I say, a little bit oily but still quite clean. IBU wise, I think 20-25 IBUs for this one. It's a bit drier into the aftertaste. A bit of dryness underneath in the malt base, smoothness in the middle, and a wee bit of a dry sweetness on top. Then you've just got a little bit of an oily fruity character coming out of this one a little bit later on. But lovely, lovely beer this, and I'm really glad that I got to try this one. Really nice to find a Vienna lager, of course. But yeah, that's everything we need to say about this one. That was the Umachia, a 4.5% Vienna lager, our second beer here at Caius Farm Brewery. Catch you guys in a second with something else. Alright guys, so just a little closer look at the brewery equipment then. So over here you can see they've got some wooden fermenters, which is quite interesting. Another two vertical ones over here, so I'm guessing these ones will be for the kind of wood-aged lagers and stuff like this, if they're horizontal tanks. But yeah, over here you can see they've got two lagering tanks at the back. They've got a wee, that looks like a bottling or canning line up there. Then they've got their kegging machine over there. Some of their barrels sitting here. I guess you can see the brew kit just over here. So it looks like they've got a 3 or 4 vessel system. You can see their hot water tank here, and then some of the other fermenters just up here. They're obviously working away on brewing something at the moment, which is kind of cool too, and a few more barrels just aging away. But yeah, as you can see, quite a nice wee setup, and as we said earlier, it's right next to the bar and the brew pub. So yeah, that's it. There you go. Alright guys, well, time for beer tasting number 3 then here at Caius Farm Brewery. So beer number 3 is going to be a little bit more of a, can we say, a modern, popular beer style, but it was one that just kind of caught my eye. So yeah, this particular beer is the Cleopatra. It comes in at 7% ABV, and it's a New Zealand hopped, New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So this is a little 6-ounce pour, which, I think it's maybe about 150 millilitres, something like that, maybe a little bit more. But when the beer came out, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head, lovely little ring around the edge of the glass there, and soft kind of foamy component on top. But you can see the colour of this one is a lovely kind of bright mango juice colour. I always like comparing IPA's appearance just to different fruit juices, because that's what the New England IPAs remind me of. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but I have to say the level of haze in this beer, relative to the percentage, is quite impressive actually. It's got a lovely kind of hue to it, this one. But remember, the level of haze in these beers depend on the oak content, the wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. And remember, that can vary from brewery to brewery and even beer to beer. So yeah, appearance-wise, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider what style it is. But let's have a little look at the aroma then and see what this one's going to have in store for us. I should point out as well, this one has Nelson Sauvin and Riwaka hops in it. So Nelson Sauvin, probably the most famous New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid, usually gives you these big white-green grapey sort of gooseberry type notes. And Riwaka is one of the lowest alpha acid hops you'll find in New Zealand. They're usually about 4 to 6% alpha acid, can give you a little bit of grapefruit and kind of passion fruit and things in there. So yeah, let's see what this one's going to have in store for us in terms of aroma. Oh yeah, aroma-wise, very smooth, very juicy New England IPA. But I do get quite a little bit of wheaty character out of this one. So as I've said in many videos before, for me there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to New England IPAs. Sort of farmhousey, grainy type, farmhousey yeasty character, Ryland and grainy sort of things. And those are a bit more common in American brewed IPAs. But there's also wheaty bitiness, barley malt bread, oaty creaminess, and also the sweeter side of things too. And those are a little bit more common in, yeah, those are definitely a little bit more common in European brewed New England IPAs, if you like. That's kind of, the New England IPAs in Europe were based mainly on the Treehouse Trillium type idea of wheatiness and oatiness. But this one strikes me as being really oaty and creamy, but with a little bit of wheatiness in the backbone, and it smells lovely. So the backbone of this beer, lovely fresh kind of white bread, bread crust in there, a little bit of cracker, a little bit of wood, big smooth thick malt base in this one, soft white bread, a bit of a thicker wheaty white bread in there as well, and a bit of wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose, big kind of creamy oaty characters as well. And yeah, it has got a little touch of like sweet component to it. You've got a little bit of like a kind of, you do have a little bit of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing in there. But not too sweet, definitely not, yeah. Has got a little bit of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch to it, but mainly a little bit of wheaty bitterness in the back of the nose and big bready and oaty creamy underneath. Lovely smelling beer, I have to say. I do like how this goes together. Yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, the backbone of the beer, in that sense, there's a little touch of earthiness in there, but a very bright floral aromaticity to this one, quite a nice wet, grassy component as well. As I've mentioned, when it comes to IPAs, there are 3 types of hoppings you can do. Early addition hopping within the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly bitterness and also a deep dank flavour and aroma. Late addition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil, a little bit of bitterness, but mainly gives you flavour and aroma, and that's quite a bright green component you're going to get out of that. But then you also have dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's going to give you completely flavour actually, and it'll give you a very bright green component as well. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs use all 3, and early addition hopping of course dominates in terms of aroma and flavour. But yeah, very bright green component in this one. The fruity side of the beer is as you would expect if you know these hops. For me, lovely big bit of bright passion fruit, maybe a little bit of peach coming out of this one as well, slightly peachy sharpness, big juicy ripe mangoes. Yeah, pardon me, big juicy ripe mango character. Then you've also got a wee bit of like apricot and papaya in there, and just a little hint of like gooseberry and lychee or something, which will be from the Citra. So yeah, aroma-wise, this is a really, really nice smelling beer actually. I think this is going to be a really nice New England. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is time for us to taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Cleopatra, a 7% New England hazy IPA with New Zealand hops. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, aroma-wise and flavour-wise, this beer is pretty consistent. Like the flavours that you get out of this are pretty much what you would expect from the aroma, but it's a really nice New England IPA. This one, it gets a big thumbs up from me. So, yeah, backbone of this beer. If we go to the middle third of the palate, lovely little, very slight touch of a soft white bready bread crust, wee bit of woodiness, a little bit of cracker on top of that. And then yeah, you've got this lovely, soft, fluffy white bread just sitting on top of that. Then you can feel the wheaty character sitting on there. As I've said, American wheat tends to be very, very smooth. So you've got this lovely, very, very smooth, wheaty, more dense white bread on top of that. Then you've got the kind of oaty layer. Down the middle line of your tongue, you've got this lovely kind of creamy oaty character. And as you push out toward the edges of your palate, it gets a slight touch more dry actually. Yeah, it's a slight touch more dry, but it's very, very fresh. Oaty character in a New England IPA is always a good indicator of how fresh your beer is. But then, yeah, on top of that, you've got a little touch of sweetness there. In the dead centre of your palate, you've got a lovely wee touch of kind of Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, and that, of course, is the alcohol component in the beer. So yeah, I think that covers the middle third of the palate. The back third of your tongue with this one, as I say, back third of the palate flavours are always similar, but the bread crusty character is a little bit more dry. There's the on top of that you get the kind of crackery type note as well. Then above that you get a really kind of light, fluffy and airy white bready note, and then above that a bit more of a wheaty bitiness, and then the kind of yeasty character is there. So for me, the yeasty side of this beer is like a kind of more dense, slightly sweeter, kind of just dense white bread in there. It's got a little bit of a woody, crackery note to it, and then it's just kind of wrapped in honeycomb. So yeah, it's as I say, it's really nice how that goes together. But on that back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it condenses down and squashes together that wee bit more, and that's really nice. On the hoppy side of things, then, back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness. As you move further forward, it's got a wee touch of herbal character, but then it very quickly becomes like a lot more bright and floral, if you like, as well. So yeah, lovely kind of bright floral character in there, quite oily. And then round the front curve of your tongue, you've got a more oily grassiness there, which has a wee bit of zestiness to it, which I think is quite nice. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, then, front third of your palate, bread crust in the base, a lovely little bit of you've got a lovely little bit of more dense, kind of smooth, wheaty white bready character on top, but then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer in this one, then, for me, I would say at the back of that front third of your palate, stronger passion fruit for sure, a little bit of a sharper peach. That's coming from a mix of the Ruaka, and the Citra on this one, but as you move further forward, big juicy mango. Underneath that, soft apricot, little bit of like a kind of papaya note, and then as you reach the very kind of front tip of your tongue, it's a little bit more kind of lemon and limey, but there is a wee bit of like an oily gooseberry or something in there as well. And then you get the grassy notes on the tip of your tongue too. But that's a really nice New England hazy, this one. That gets a big thumbs up for me. Really like this. Yeah, so I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of the beer. So, mouthfeel side of things then. For me, it's quite... it's pushing, it's kind of right in the middle of the spectrum. Carbonation's really smooth, very creamy, but at the same time it's got a wee bit of like oily slickness to it. In terms of your IBUs, it's kind of 30, which is standard for this style of beer. As you said, the malt base has got a wee bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and then a wee touch of like creaminess and sweetness on top, and then you've got this nice oily fruity character, which has a wee bit of citrusy note to it, but it's mainly quite juicy and quite tropical. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about this beer, to be honest with you. That's a really nice New Zealand hopped New England IPA for me. That's good. I've not enjoyed a single New England IPA quite as much as that in a wee while, come to think of it. So yeah, let's leave it there. That was the Cleopatra 7% New Zealand hopped New England IPA. I'll catch you guys in a second with something else. I think we're going to do one more beer actually, but yeah, see you in a second. Alright guys, so as you very often find in American breweries, you've got a nice fridge here which has lots of goodies that you can take home. So yeah, up here on the right you have the Césarion, a Belgian grisette style ale at 4% ABV. Down here you've got the Hydna, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Hydna, not sure, but a Czech style Pilsner at 4.7% ABV. Here you've got the Eumachia, which is a Vienna lager at 4.5% ABV. This shelf is the Pericles, which is a 9.1% Imperial IPA. Down here you've got the Caracalla, which is a 6.7% American IPA. Then the one down here is the Balbila, which is a German Kolsch style ale at 4.9% ABV. A little bit of a heavy Kolsch, that one actually, come to think of it. But yeah, nice little selection of beers available here. There are a few others listed on the thing here as well, actually, on the little list on the side. So yeah, quite nice. The prices are quite reasonable as well, $16 to roughly $20 a 4-pack, depending on what you want. But yeah, good little selection here at Caius Farm Brewery. So yeah, that's that. Alright guys, well, time for the fourth and final tasting then here at Caius Farm Brewery. So Tabor and I have moved over to the romantic seats, just because that's kind of what you do when it starts to kind of dampen down a little bit with the light, and we thought it was a really nice spot basically, so yeah. But as I promised, the fourth and final tasting is going to be at the opposite end of the spectrum, and this beer, from what I gather, is a bit of a beast. So this one was the number 2 on the tap, the Boadicea at 12% ABV. This one is an Imperial Maple Stout, which you don't find all that often in Europe. But yeah, it's been a wee while actually. It feels like a good wee while since I've had an Imperial Stout at this strength, although it was just back in Scotland when I was rattling through some of those big Imperial Stouts to film for you. But yeah, I've been reviewing a lot of IPAs and lagers and stuff over here in the US now. So this is actually the first Imperial Stout that I've done on one of the Out and About videos in the US this time, which is kind of cool. But anyway, when this beer poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would say medium beige coloured head. This one, that's faded away to be a really kind of thin foamy wispy layer on the top, thicker ring around the edge of the glass, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the edge of the glass there too. But yeah, of course, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. You wouldn't expect that from an Imperial Stout. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then, and just see what it's going to be like. But 12% Imperial Maple Stout, this one, Boadicea, should be good. Oh yeah, aroma wise, this is pretty damn good. I've said in many reviews before that a lot of the American Imperial Stouts that I've tried have been a little bit lighter in their mouthfeel than their European counterparts. And remember, with Imperial Stouts, there are two things that you can do. You can do like a double or triple mash if you want to, which will thicken up your mouthfeel. Either that, or you can do like a longer wort boil, or both if you really want to. And a longer wort boil will give you a more kind of leathery, caramelly sort of mouthfeel and things. But yeah, just I don't know if it's a difference in malts or whatever, you know, German Crystal versus American Turo and so on. I've always found American Imperial Stouts are just a bit lighter in their mouthfeel, so I'm quite curious about this one to see what this is going to be like. But yeah, for me, aroma-wise, this is lovely. The backbone of the beer, roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. I'm getting a little bit of the grass just as well, because I think it hasn't even really been freshly cut, but I'm still getting a little bit of the grass coming up out here at the moment. But yeah, and I'm probably going to get eaten alive by the mosquitoes at this time too, because yeah, that's just how it goes. But still, the sacrifices you make for beer tubing. On top of that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust, you get this kind of more dense, caramelised rye bread. There's a sort of chocolate muffiny type thing to this one as well. So yeah, like sort of rye, good bit of rye kind of bready character in there, like a chocolate brownie, chocolate muffin type thing. A few little kind of nutty characters coming out of this one. And then yeah, on top of that you start to get the chocolate. So for me, it's a sort of 80-90% cocoa chocolate. But you do get a little element of maybe, you know, 50 or 60% cocoa chocolate as well. Then you've got quite a wee bit of brown sugar. It doesn't come across as too leathery, but you certainly have a wee bit of like a treacle molasses sort of thing going on with this one too. So yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say about the kind of malty side of the beer, to be honest with you. On the hoppy side of things, and remember, the Imperial Stout is not the most hop-forward style of beer. You do get a little bit of earthiness in there. There's a little bit of an oily floral aromaticity as well. Then you've got a nice kind of grassy character to it, but as I say, not the most hop-forward style of beer. Galena was a very popular hop to use in these. Williamette as well. You know, it just gives you a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of oily floral character, and a wee touch of grassiness. And then, of course, you do have a nice little bit of oily fruitiness to this one as well. Yeah, so for me, the fruity character in this one, a good little bit of an oily raisin in here. Doesn't have too much of a sharpness though. Big juicy plum. Definitely a little bit of a kind of pruny note too. Oily fig, blackberry, blackcurrant. These are all things that you would kind of expect to that. I'm just surprised with the kind of brown sugary notes in this one. The maple syrup takes a wee bit of time to come out, and it's almost a little bit like a kind of demerara or bourbon sugar actually in this beer. But I don't think the maple syrup is overly obvious in this one, to be honest with you. But it might just be being kind of suppressed a little bit by other elements of the aroma. But yeah, as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck in. But I think we can have a little look at this one now and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Boadicea, a 12% Imperial Stout, our last beer here at Caius Farm Brewery. Slàinte, skål, cheers. I'm going to say straight away, that's lovely. Yeah, this is a really, really nice double IPA. You know, on the tap, these beers are always going to be a bit lighter and a bit more kind of smooth and things, but this just hits the spot. In honesty, I've been a bit bored with all these kind of sweet pastry stouts and things that have been coming out recently. I like a good old school Imperial Milk Stout or a good old RIS, and this beer is really like an old school RIS, just with that kind of sweeter, kind of little bit of maple syrup in it. There was a nitro version of this beer on that had coffee in it as well, actually. So yeah, but this is very nice. This is good. So let's just break this beer down and then describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So yeah, for me, backbone of the beer, there's a little bit of that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust, but it isn't too harsh actually. It is actually kind of quite smooth in this one. When you move a little bit further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got a wee bit more of a kind of woodiness in there, which is great. So a little touch of woodiness. On top of the woodiness, there's a little bit of there is a little bit of a kind of, I would say, kind of nuttiness develops. But then above that, yeah, you do get this very dense, slightly sweeter rye bready character, and then above that you get a mix of like a kind of chocolate brownie, and then yeah, you get a bit of chocolate brownie, and then you get like you get a mix of chocolate brownie and then a wee bit of like a chocolate muffin sitting on top of it. So yeah. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense is really, really nice. Above the sort of chocolate brownie layer, you start to get like a drier cocoa nibby type note in the beer. So on the back of that middle third of your palate, there's a bit more of like a higher 80-90% cocoa type note. Then as you move further forward, it kind of mellows out a wee bit, and as you reach the front of that middle third of your palate, it's a bit more kind of like 50-60% cocoa chocolate, so just not quite as dark. Then above that, you can feel a little bit of the maple syrup. You start to get the brown sugar, so you can feel that oily maple syrup. But it strikes me as being a little bit of a drier and darker maple syrup. But then you've got the little circle in the middle of your palate, a bit of a toasty brown sugar, and then the big treacle molasses right in the middle of the tongue. And that is, of course, the alcohol component of the beer. And that's lovely. But of course, the middle third of your palate is where you're going to get the majority of the complexity coming out of this beer, which is really nice. So yeah, I think that covers the middle third of the palate. Let's move to the back third of your palate, and as I said, the flavours are usually quite similar there, just at different intensities. So you've got the well-fired bread crust in there, which is a little bit drier and more roasty toasty. The rye bread is there, it feels a little bit lighter and more airy. Then you've got the more kind of big chocolate brownie type note, which still feels quite dense actually. Then the lighter, more airy chocolate muffin above that, and some of the kind of more toasty sort of cocoa nibby characters just creeping over the top of that. Then you've got the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at the yeasty side of things. So yeah, the yeasty side of the beer for me, you've got a good the yeasty side of the beer for me, you've got this really dense, sweet, yeah, I'd say you've got this really dense, very sweet, like, almost like pumpernickel German brown bread in there. It's got a little bit of nuttiness around it, like a little bit of praline or something like that. Then it's kind of wrapped in honeycomb. And then, yeah, that is your yeasty character. And definitely on the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So, yeah, that's really quite nice how that pieces together. So, yeah, really interesting stuff. So, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's definitely a wee bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, the earthiness actually does spread maybe to about halfway forward along the sides of your tongue. You've got a nice little bit of an oily floral component there. Then round the front curve of your tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more sort of grassy, which I do really like as well. So yeah, nice kind of big oily grassy character in this one. But yeah, the green component, of course, takes a bit of a back seat when it's an Imperial Stout because it is such a big malty beer. So yeah, for me, the fruity part of this beer, then we'll go to the front third of your palate. So you've got that roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust just kind of sitting underneath. On top of that, you've got that more dense kind of rye bready, sweet character coming out of this one. Then you get a wee bit of the kind of dry chocolatey note, and then you get that big oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at the fruity side of things with this beer. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of the beer, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit of an oily plum out of this one. If you go underneath that, there's a bit of prune, maybe a very slight datey character, and kind of sultana type note in the base at the back of that front third of your palate. And then yeah, as you move further forward, you gradually get more of like the datey character comes out a little bit more. Then as you move into the front half of the front third of your tongue, you get black currant and an oily sort of blackberry just sitting on top of that. And as I say, it's really nice how all of that pieces together in this particular beer. So yeah, interesting stuff, I have to say. This one for me is really quite interesting, and I like it. It's a solid Imperial Stout, this one. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. I'll need to see if they've got a bottle or something of this in the brewery to take away. But yeah, we've got a little flying ant trying to get inside my beer so they can get lost. But yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, kind of bottom end of full-bodied for me, very smooth carbonation, good little bit of like silkiness in the mouthfeel, but quite roasty and dry overall. In terms of the IBUs, I think this one's got to be about 70-ish IBU. There's quite a bit of roasty, malty character in there, of course, and some earthiness from the hops. Of course, the longer you age this beer, if you have a bottle or whatever, the more the hoppy character is going to drop out. But the maltiness, of course, has a good little bit of, yeah, the maltiness underneath has a really nice little bit of kind of roastiness in there, smoothness and sweetness in the middle, and then another sweetness on top. The fruity character is nice and oily, but quite dry into the aftertaste. But yeah, overall, really nice Imperial Stout, this one, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Bodicea 12% Imperial Maple Stout, our last beer here at Caius Farm Brewery. This was a really nice thing to sample right at the end, actually, and I think that gives us a nice rounded look at their beers. 2 different lagers, an IPA and an Imperial Stout. We could have had a look at one of the sours or something like that as well, but yeah, we can't stay here all day, of course. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I'll catch you guys with my final thoughts in just a wee second. Ciao just now. Alright guys, well that is the time over then here at Caius Farm Brewery in Branford. So yeah, we had a really nice couple of hours here. I got to try 4 different beers. We had their oak-aged Helles Lager, which was really nice actually. Really enjoyed that one, something a bit more unusual. Then we had the Vienna Lager, which I thought was really good, but I felt that was a wee bit more along the lines of like a Czech Letzak, a Czech Amber Lager, than a Vienna Lager. Maybe because it was just that little bit lower in alcohol rather than being closer to the 5%. The New Zealand New England IPA was really very nice as well, and the Imperial Stout was absolutely lovely. So to be quite honest, nothing but positive things to say about my time here at Caius Farm Brewery. I would really recommend you come and visit these guys. They're very new. They've only been open about 6 months at this point. I'm visiting them in the very beginning of September 2023, and they've apparently only been in here since about March or so, if I remember correctly. In total, the 2 lagers that I had, they were about $9 each. Then the 2 small pours, I think the IPA was $4 and the Imperial Stout was $5. So that took me up to, you know, $27 or something like that. And of course in the US you tend to leave like 15-20% tip to kind of top up the wages and stuff of the staff. But the staff were lovely. The 2 girls that were working there were really very nice. So yeah, in total that would have been yeah, somewhere in the region of like $33, $34 that I paid. So that's roughly about 350 Swedish kroner, about 32, 33 euros, and somewhere in the region of like £30 sterling, just for those of you watching in different parts of the world. But yeah, really nice time here at Caius Farm Brewery. Really enjoyed the beers, and hopefully I can get a mixed 4 or something like that from them. That's one of the other things, as I say, once again, they wouldn't sort me a mixed 4-pack. I think that's something that breweries need to do. They need to start offering like a set mixed 4, so that people who are just visiting the brewery like once, like me, can take away some of the beers and try different ones and things like that, because to have to buy a 4-pack of the one beer is quite frustrating. But this is something that I found seems to happen in America. But yeah, other than that, very, very positive things to say about my time here at Caius Farm Brewery. But yeah, that's that for this one. I'm sure we'll film a few more out and about videos while I'm here in Connecticut, and you can look forward to those. But come and check out Caius Farm Brewery in Branford, near New Haven in Connecticut. Until the next time, sláinte, skål, cheers, and see you guys in the next out and about video.